was lost but not forgotten, redeemed by the only begotten.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Friday afternoon, and I'm here at Hope Recovery in Corona, California. Inside of Hope Recovery is Hope Studios, and that's where we come to you from. The other day, it's just so funny. I don't know why, but this is where I'm at right now. The other day, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Sean, for such a wonderful facility. Because the other day I was looking at some guy who had some podcaster who had posted on a page. He posted a picture of his table and a table, not even this nice, and his laptop and in his closet. And he had decided he'd made a big advance in his acoustics by putting his podcast in the closet. I thought, oh my God, how blessed am I that this is where I get to do my podcast, right?
It's like a walk-in closet.
Yes. Clothes and everything all over. He took the picture of his clothes and everything.
Right.
It was crazy. I thought, wow, what a blessing, right? So Men of Impact Radio, where did we come from? How do we do? And honestly, we started as a Bible study group at a church. And I've got one of my originals here today with me, a Bible study at a church. Now we still have that Bible study, only we do it at a Starbucks off of Indian Truck Trail in Corona, California, off of the 15 freeway. We meet at that Starbucks. COVID is just now ending, so we were multiplied to a couple. We'll probably be starting that later. We have another chapter out in LA. Ray Enriquez does that with some conductors for the Metrolink. So if you have any questions on what we'd really like to see is Men of Impact chapters all over the city, the state, and the country. And then we'd like to all come together for a convention one day. But that's what we'd like to see. How do you do that? Well, simple. You just get a couple guys, go sit at a Starbucks, start reading your Bible. People will come, but there are other things that you can do that we did. So email us at Men of Impact, IMPAKT, @gmail.com. Look us up on Facebook. Look us up on Instagram, message us. I've got a lot of guys, can give you a lot of encouragement, how to get it done, how to grow it, how to grow God's Bible study. Let's not forget, it's not your Bible study. It's never your Bible study. It's Jesus' Bible study. It's going to get just as big as he wants it to get. Sometimes we have 15 guys, 20 guys, and we've shown up and there've been 4 of us there. Nobody gets discouraged. We just understand that those 4 really need Jesus that day. So, if you're in the Corona area, give us a call. Come see us. Today, though, what I do is I bring out men of impact. Mostly they're men that impacted my lives, but a lot of times they're just making an impact out there, whether they're making it on their family, their community, or the world. Either way, they're a man of impact. I think we need to celebrate our real heroes here, which are men of impact. They're the guys that get up in the morning, they go to work, they grind all day for their family. They do the right thing. They know that they work for Jesus, not for their boss. They grind for their wife. They grind for their kids, and they treat them all nicely. That's what a man of impact is. It's not a man of impact isn't necessarily on the screen, stage, or court. Actually, most of those guys aren't necessarily the type of impact that we're talking about. Positive impact. Fellas, you're going to make an impact. You are making an impact out there. Question is, what kind of impact are you making? Is it positive? Is it negative? So we got our shirts here today. It tells us what our message is, right? Men of Impact. You can get these shirts if you'd like. Just let me know. One of the things, too, that I want to talk about is one of the things that we're doing. So anybody out there in the Corona area, tomorrow we're going to be at South Hills Church at 10 a.m. We go as a group once a month because we're all about church unity. The church is the people. It's not the building. We're all about the church. We are the church. We want everybody to see that we are the church, and the building doesn't matter what building we're in. We're just there to worship God. So today, one of my best friends for a long time and one of my go-to guys on the approved list, he is definitely on my approved list with my wife. I am allowed to go to him. He has, honestly, I've shared with him the impact he's had on my life. On a lot of different occasions, different things that he said to me that I've never forgotten. And he probably still has no idea the impact that he's made. So, and we honestly, we don't talk this nice to each other all the time, but today is the day. So his It's my buddy Phil Bearman. That's who my guest is today. I've known him for a long time. Phil, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and then we'll. I just want. There's a lot I want to talk about. So,
Talking about myself and my family.
well, what do you do for a living? How many kids?
Well,
wife?
Let's see. I've
grandkids?
got a beautiful wife that I've been married to for 35 years. Met in San Diego. I've been working for the same company as a director of. I do director of sales for 28 years. So I work from home, so that's a nice benefit. So I prior to COVID, I did an awful lot of traveling. Since COVID, not a whole lot. I have a beautiful daughter up north who's getting ready to get married probably in the next year or so. They actually she just bought her first house up there, and so she's excited. And let's see, I've got 2 grandkids. I've got from our son, and one that's 5 and one that's 1, and I think that's about it.
Okay. And one of the, just a little thing. Me and Phil, I did we meet at men's group or did we meet at the basketball? I'm confused about that.
No, I think we met at. No, I think we met at church at Bible, that Bible study. So was that the Bible study?
We couldn't have.
No,
because Megan's the one that told us to go to that church.
Right. So, well, I mean, we first met with you coaching Megan in basketball, right? And so
was it a city league that she just happened to?
It was it was the Norco City League.
Yeah.
And so you were coaching the team. Mireya was on the team, and so Megan was on the team, and so she's the one that then had told you guys to try out South Hills, and that was 20 years ago. And so, and you started attending, and we kept playing basketball together as far as with the girls, and then we got involved with Bible study, and then all of us guys playing basketball every Wednesday morning, and you and I seemed to always get picked to guard each other. So I got to know each other very, very, very closely. So it's been a 20-year run.
20-year run, and we've, we've done things together as families. Mm-hmm. We've, kids, us. We've gone places for weekends. This is one of my best friends in the world, the history of my life, and his wife is also one of my best friends in the world. And has had a great impact on both me and my wife and my marriage. So we started out, we've done a lot of things together. We did P90X for a year and a half. We played basketball. We were with all of these men, and we've been in Men of Impact.
Yeah, but with all of those things that other than starting with the City League basketball, our basketball that we played together at as men at LA Fitness, to the P90X, to the men's morning Bible studies, all of those were centered around other believers that were, all of us that would, like when we played basketball, it wasn't all believers, but again, there was a good solid group of us that's kind of how we've stayed together, right? It's always been, some sort of function or subset of being involved with church, right? I mean, It's just been because if I look at my group of friends that I have, which of course you and Eve are very close to us because we've known each other for so long, but if I go down the list of all of those that we hang out with, go do things with, whatever the case may be, they're all grown from relationships through church.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the healthiest relationships, to have, and so we built our life around that, right? And from a from a doing life together perspective, those are the people you're going to want to lean on as you are going through that, right? Because when God God uses others that are in your life to then be able to give you wisdom, right? As far as with direction that you go in your life, people that, are smarter than you and areas that you can then lean on them for advice on things to do in handling life. But it's that core network that we've all been around. And so we've got a lot of shared friends that we've been able to lean on over the years.
And okay, in your opinion, I mean, no, we're here to talk about marriage, but right now, we're talking a little bit about men of impact. Is in your opinion, on a scale, I mean, small groups on a scale from 1 to 10, for a guy, what do you think? How important is it for a guy to be in a men's group?
Oh, 11. I mean, again, if you don't have that group, and again, for a married couple, then it's being able to be involved with other married couples.
Mm-hmm.
For men, you still need that time to be around men. For the ladies, they need that time to be around the ladies, because you have certain things that you are working through as a man, and there's certain things you're working through as a couple. Mm-hmm. But to not have those Christian influences as close friends and confidants and advisors, that if you don't have that, I don't see how a person kind of gets through life. I mean, if you look back at this last year of the pandemic, there are many people that their biggest challenge is that they didn't have any social interaction with anybody. They didn't have anybody to really interact with. And because you weren't going to work, you didn't have your people at work that you interacted with, even though they may not have been close friends, at least you had that interaction, right? And everybody was stuck working from home and this whole stir crazy aspect, where for at least us, and I know with you guys, we still had a group to be able to interact with. It may not have been face to face. It may have been Zoom. It may have been whatever, but we had someone to still have communion with, interaction with. And I think that made a huge difference in not feeling so confined over this last year, right? As far as with whatever struggle a person was going through, however way they were feeling, whatever, that network meant it all.
It does,
right?
And to me, I think, and which is, and here we are,
right,
right. So, and we're going to do some more things together this weekend. Tomorrow we've got a cleanup. I don't know who can make everything, but this weekend's kind of a busy weekend for the Men of Impact. We've got a cleanup tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning for a few hours for a widow from one of the churches. We're always looking for opportunities out there. Anybody's got anything, single moms, anybody that might need any help around the house, or get your boys out of the house if you're a single mom, anything, right? We're always looking for stuff like that.
Right.
And then Sunday we're all meeting at South Hills Church. This is our visit this week.
Yeah. The other thing, just to touch on it, when we talk about us hanging out as men, and we'll get into the couple part of it too, but there's also, it's great when you have new people that get involved with it as we've grown Men of Impact, because you then have, everybody has this aura that, oh, well, it's a men's Bible study and all you're going to do is sit there and chant or read the Bible or whatever. And as you well know, we can end up going through an entire morning and start out on a certain path, but God takes us completely somewhere else because an individual's got a situation that's going on. You end up talking through that. And no one's perfect, right? So, the thing I really appreciate and know about our relationship and the relationship with a lot of the guys that we know together is that we're real, right? It's not, nothing is out of bounds, right?
Nothing is
and nobody is perfect, right? I mean, there's some conversations and some things that are discussed that it's like, oh my God, this is a church group. Yeah. Because we as men deal with stuff, be it angry with our spouse or our kids or whatever the
situation,
ourselves. And I just really, there's nothing more enlightening to then see a person that then gets plugged in and involved in that, to realize that that's not what I had in mind at all, right? And then the same thing when we used to play basketball together, right? And you had these guys that were not involved with the church, and how many end up getting involved because they watch us cuss each other out on the court because we're pissed off about something. It's like, I thought you were a Christian. Well, yeah, but we're not perfect, you know,
Right.
and we all are doing this together, and we're there to support one another. And so that, I guess for lack of a better word, we're real, right? It's real. It's not, again, it's not just, it's not church, right? I mean, it is church, but it's not going to church on a Sunday service. This is a group of men that are getting together, trying to be able to follow Christian principles together, and recognizing the fact that nobody's perfect and everybody's doing their best, and we all fall short, and we can lean on each other as far as that. You may be a rock star in a certain area and certain things that you're doing that I'm super weak at. And I'm talking about in our spiritual walk, in our relationships, whatever the case may be, business, whatever it is, you're able to then find those people that are doing it a little better, but then they have their weak spot that they're able to lean on somebody else that's doing their part a little better. And, together,
We're better.
And we're growing. Right. I mean, I'm a different man than was 20 years ago. Right. I mean, I'm a different man than I was 35 years ago before I met my wife. So,
yeah. And I attribute most of it, honestly, to my Corona guys. For me, I was pretty rough around the edges when everybody around here started beating me. I was not, I had just gotten saved, and just for the audience out there that has heard me say it on several occasions, this is the guy who told me you don't call your wife a nightmare. This is the guy. So he told me, don't breathe that into existence. Last thing you need is a wife that's actually a nightmare.
True.
So we were talking about, you mentioned something there about how not being a believer, but it's being a believer. It's tough for us to, I mean, I remember when I wasn't a believer, how my life was, and how angry I was, and how difficult life was, because I was always pissed off because I didn't understand the big picture. Right. So sometimes we even talk about it on Saturday mornings, how does anybody live not knowing or believing in God? It's just so draining. Right. And then be married. Right. So we were talking a little bit before, and maybe if you can speak into that time in your life where for a fact, I mean, we know for a fact on many occasions that early on in your marriage, it was proven to you that no God, bad. Good God, good. Right?
Sure.
So if you could kind of talk to some of the guys through that experience.
So since you had wanted to talk about marriage, I'd said that I've been married for 35 years. So I met my wife in San Diego. I was a fraternity guy going to
San Diego State.
At San Diego State.
Which was on more than 1 year voted #1 party school in America.
But of course, I didn't participate in any of that. And so I had girlfriends and such, and I was done having girlfriends. And all of a sudden I had broken a pair of glasses at spring break in Mexico. And when I came back, they were Varney sunglasses, so they were guaranteed for life. So I looked up in a phone book and found a place that had Varney sunglasses, and called them up, and I said I had lost the screw in the temple, and so I said I needed to replace that screw. And the doctor basically says, I have 3 ladies in here that would be happy to give you a screw. So I said, okay. So I hurriedly went up there, and my future wife was the manager there. And so she was not very happy with what the doctor had said. But to make a long story short, when we walked in, it was love at first sight. She had just gotten out of a relationship. She didn't want to have a boyfriend. I didn't want to have a girlfriend. And it was absolutely 100% a God thing, because it was a love at first sight. And we then started to date. And I found out that she was a church girl. that she was actually at a very big church in San Diego. She was actually on staff volunteering. And here I am, this fraternity guy. And so I'm trying to convince her that a fraternity is just like a church. And
I would love to hear that one.
we do events, we have a leadership team and we do events and we plan things. It's just a little bit different, kind of the God that we were serving at that time. So at any rate, but she immediately had got me involved in church. And it was one of those situations where every Sunday at church, I'm sitting there and it's like, I'm convinced my wife had told the pastor what to talk about because he's talking directly at me. I could swear he was looking right at me, and I knew that she was
for weeks, right?
Oh yeah. Since she was involved in leadership, I had in my mind that she really had, kind of, it's how we are. Yes. ego wise. It's all about me. Of course, the pastor was he's got 1,000 people in the church, but he's doing that sermon just for me. So, but for weeks, and God grabbed a hold of me, and I was on fire. Which I love new Christian people, because when they start seeing that kind of life change in their life, in the beginning, it is huge, right? As the longer you're a Christian, it's like an onion. You're peeling pieces away, but in the beginning, man, there's a lot of stuff to peel away. Yeah. But my wife and I ended up getting married 4 months later, and that was 35 years ago. So. And when we got married, we were very involved in church, were involved in leadership, did all the things. Life was going great. I finished college. We moved up to the Corona area for my new job at the time. And just prior to that, we had really kind of stopped going to church. It was one of those things where we had moved to a place that church became too far. So we decided to switch to a different church that was closer. But now we didn't know anybody. So if we didn't show up on Sunday, no one really noticed. And before you know it, we were there every other Sunday. And before you knew it, it was once a month. And before you knew it, we really weren't going. Then we moved up here and didn't try to find a home church. And we weren't going to church at all. And we did about a year and a half we stopped going to church. I wouldn't say we weren't a Christian, but boy, we fell away completely. And at that point, I was drinking a lot and just was not following God. And it was a serious rough patch. And so my wife at that point actually had thought that she was going to leave me. It turned around and we actually started going to church again, and we rededicated our lives to God. And we've never looked back. We haven't stayed at the same church. We've lived in Corona now for 30 years. But the one thing that we have absolutely told ourselves is that we will always have a home church to attend. That if you don't have that tie, that's your downfall, right? And we can now look at it and go, God put us together, and that was all of God. And we almost lost it all because we took our eyes off of God. And now back today, again, like we were mentioning before, our entire social network, all of our friends, everybody that we hang out with are all tied to church. I mean, almost everything that we do we're going to a ball game tonight. Well, we're going to a ball game tonight, and we're going to tailgate with the entire group being all part of one of our small groups that we're associated with one way or another, that are all Christian people hanging out. And we're going to have a great time. Right. So it's all about the blessings of being able to, keep God in your life and keep him in your life daily. So.
And for some of the people out there, here's what I need you to understand about this. Yes. Okay. Two things. Let me ask you this question. So you've reiterated that if you're a Christian, right? Because we talk about it a lot on Saturday. I talk about it a lot. Well, I don't need church. I'm very spiritual. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you even said, it's not that you weren't a Christian. So talking to believers now, if you're a non-believer, bro, get to church or get to a study, if not, if you are a believer, then we have to have church. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to have interaction with other individuals, right? Because if you're doing like my daughter, she is watching online church. And again, we raised her in a Christian environment, but it pains my heart that she's not actually getting plugged into an actual church. And the reason is that it's social network. right? It's the people that you end up hanging out with. It's the relationships that you build, right? And those relationships that you build don't just come from Sunday, for an hour attending on Sunday morning. It's then doing the service work like we're going to do. I can guarantee you tomorrow, when we go out and do that service work, I am going to get a chance to know somebody much better than I knew them before yesterday morning, because we're going to be working side by side, raking leaves, doing whatever, and you start chit chat, and you get to realize that, we have this in common, we have that in common, and a new friend is built, or a relationship is a little bit deeper. But you don't get that if you're not attending somewhere as a home church, or like you said, attending. If all you then choose to do is, let's say, Men of Impact on Saturday morning, you're at least getting around socializing with other Christian men to be able to then build that social network, right? Because if you go to church, even if you're going to church on Sunday, but you're hanging out with the world, Sunday afternoon through the following Sunday, you're giving Satan a foothold in your life, because you're not, if I look at my week right now, 4 days a week, I'm involved somewhere with my Christian fellowship, either with small group, Men of Impact on Saturday, church on Sunday, and that doesn't even include other social things that one goes out and does.
Baseball
right?
tonight.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff, right? So those are the kinds of things that now you're surrounding yourself and keeping God more involved in your life, right? That whole thing when my wife and I had moved up here and saying that we weren't Christian, or that we were falling away, it was because we were letting the rest of the world pollute what we knew was right, because we weren't centered on what was most important, which was God, and then other people that are trying to do the same thing. Again, nobody is perfect in this whole thing, but at least you're around other people that help lift you up. And as a couple, we've got those things that we do as a couple, but then we absolutely have to have those men that we're around to be able to have manly conversations, that we're having together, right? Because if we don't have all of that, I'm not going to be able to then move in the direction that God wants me to move, right? If Phil is trying to be able to decide what God wants all on Phil all by myself, you got to be a pretty spiritually deep dude to be able to do that. And that's not me, right? But when I'm bouncing things off other Christian men, and they're looking at me going, I'm not so sure about that. Or, yeah, hey, you know what? I agree with you 100%. I think that's a good opinion, or a good perspective to have, or a direction that you want to go. I'm getting validated with that. I'm getting validated by other Christian men that are helping me, and hopefully I'm helping them make those decisions as we walk through life, right? So yeah, it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
And making the tough decision does get easier, right? As long as you continue to do it, right? And I can attest here. If anybody's not sure out there, any guy not sure out there, if what you're doing, or how you're acting, or your behavior is acceptable, come on down Saturday morning, 6:30. I got a group of guys that'll tell you exactly what they think about that behavior.
Yeah, but we also have a group
With
of
love.
guys. Yeah, but we also have a group of guys that you may sit back and be going, okay, yeah, I know that I shouldn't be doing this, or I know I shouldn't be doing that. In that group of guys, you have somebody that's been there,
Probably more than one.
and you may still have some of them that are struggling with the very same thing right now.
Yes.
Right. I mean, again, we are not perfect, right? But what we are trying to do is get better, right? We are trying to get better together, right? And that's the whole idea, is that we are
accountable.
Well, exactly. Very good. And we also understand that we're all flawed, and that's just what we're trying to be able to work through that. And that's what God wants, right?
That's it.
Right. And that's where, with like the stuff we're going to do Saturday afternoon, or, with the service work and stuff, or this type of avenue or whatever, God is also saying, hey, you can't just be focused on taking care of your own. There's a lot of other people that are out there that need that same thing. But the biggest aspect of that is that I encourage anybody to be able to get involved in what we do or something, but I'm pretty proud of what we have, and that there's no judging going on at all.
No.
Right? There's absolutely no, and we've got several people that are in the group now that the only reason they joined is because they used to get their coffee every Saturday morning, and saw it and said, "Hey, what church are you part of?" Well, we're not really part of a church. We're just at, and they'll come in and get their coffee. When they see us busting up laughing, the people realize that it's not quite as serious as I thought of, as that quote Bible study.
These guys actually have fun.
Yeah, we do,
and we have a lot of fun.
We have a lot of fun. We can take a topic and we can go off.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can go off the rails. And again, but when we do that, when we have those Saturdays where we're as far as going through Isaiah or whatever, and we're supposed to have this certain stuff, God wanted it to be that way. Somebody got fed something because of that conversation that we had, right?
That's right.
So
and we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be right back. Okay, so
Along the road, let's travel. Well, I have come, I'm just a man, a sinner saved by grace, a soldier in this battle. Well, I will run, and though I stumble and fall, he picks me up again. And I can't see you there, but I can feel you here. So amazed that you love me, though I'm the chief of sinners. I've been declared the winner, 'cause I was blind, but now I see. Lost but not forgotten, redeemed by the only begotten, the Son of God lives in me. Oh yeah, among the sinners I am chief. Well, I'm no better than you, that's for sure now. I've fallen short again, and I cry out for mercy with a hammer and nail in my hand. He sees everything that I do, yet he loves me. And I don't understand why yet we were sinners, he sent his only son to die. sinner, I am chief. Along the road, let's travel. Well, I have come, I'm just a man, a sinner saved by grace, a soldier in this battle. Well, I will run, and though I stumble and fall, he picks me up again. And I can't see you there, but I can feel you here. So amazed that you love me.
Are back with here at Im-pakt and Phil Bearman. And remember, you can contact us, menofimpact@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, and oh my gosh, I forgot to say, all of these episodes, as well as other things, will be are on our YouTube channel, Men of Impact, IMPAKT. Please subscribe, like, comment, and ask for notifications, because the more of all of those we get, the more people these get in front of. And quite honestly, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think this didn't need to get in front of people. There's just not a lot of, Sean was even telling me that there's just not a lot of guy podcasts about guys. Just not guys, because guys aren't willing to sit here and be vulnerable. And we kind of learned that. So there's, I want to discuss, we were discussing, one of the issues with being married, we discussed it last week, and we're going to discuss it, is communication, right? There has to be the type of communication and trust that the response from our spouse is going to be not judgmental. This is a difficult thing that I have had in my marriage. For me, I am always afraid that I'm going to say something wrong, because I say a lot of things wrong to my wife incorrectly. It's well documented, guys. Show up Saturday morning, they'll all tell you I say dumb crap. So in that, sometimes, and thankfully the guys have taught me how to at least stop, pay attention, maybe reapproach, and it's helped me immensely. But there are times when things happen in our lives that we just don't deal well with, and we could literally, it costs a lot of marriages. And I was just, I want to know, it was a rough year for everybody. All I'm going to tell you right now is it was an extremely rough year for my friend here. And it could have been a marriage killer. How did you and your wife get through a very rough time last year? Communication.
Well, you really have tried hard to tiptoe around that, didn't you?
I did. Okay. Because I'm not sure where you're at.
I know. We've talked about this. Again, anyone that knows me, then they know our story. But I had mentioned to you before that I've got 2 grandkids. My daughter's not married yet. I had a son, Ryan, and last May 4th, May 5th, during COVID, he took his own life. And so he was 30 years old. And so, yes, that's a pretty devastating thing to happen to an individual, to us as a family. There's a lot, when you talk about COVID, COVID took a back seat, where a lot of people were really impacted and made such a big deal about COVID. I could care less about COVID. I can, but that took a back seat.
Well, yeah.
But and just as a quick story with that, if anybody that knew my son, one of the biggest things is that there was such shock by people, because no one knew. No one knew the struggles that he had, and he struggled from what was called hidden depression, and so he dealt with that he dealt with that without really, I mean, people knew a little bit, but no one would ever have thought that would happen. So, and not to get too caught up in that, it was a very difficult situation. And back to what we had talked about before, our church family was huge in that we had that church family to lean on. And that church family was leaned in as when we felt we needed to be leaned in on,
And they were all very respectful of your wishes.
yeah,
correct?
well, yes, all the way around. And again, those that were that are close to us, they were there, and but more than anything else, my wife and I had each other, and so for us, again, our faith is, if you, without our faith, you can't accept or understand how something like that can happen, right? But what you have to look at is that, okay, everybody has free will, but God can step in where he needs to, or God has his plan. And so no matter the circumstance itself, we've taken away from that, okay, through this, God has his plan. What that is going to look like, I don't know. We don't know, my wife and I, because as I say all the time, I look at my walk as a Christian as that I'm a cog in the wheel. So this circumstance that has transpired may have an impact on somebody 10 years from now that ends up coming to know Christ. And because of that, the angels will rejoice in heaven, and it will be all worthwhile because another soul was saved, right? Mm-hmm. But on a practical sense, you still have to deal with that, and we still are dealing with that. Each day that goes by, you continue to heal. Again, it's now been over a year. I mean, if I were to have this same conversation a year ago, I wouldn't be.
It would have been a different conversation.
And it would be, again, the emotions are a lot higher. And you go, if you go through something like that as an individual and as a couple, my wife and I had lots of shoulda, woulda conversations, right? Well, if we would have just done this, or if we would have handle a situation like that, because again, our son wasn't perfect, and we definitely knew that he had his challenges, but we just never thought, he was working through all that and was pretty successful with his job and things. He's college grad. He had just gotten his degree, and things were seemingly on a very upward trajectory. So at any rate, but the communication between my wife and I, we've been able to sit there and, which I think is key, is that we've been able to express how we felt with each other, and express how we're feeling, right? Because that's probably the biggest thing, is that if I'm sitting there and I'm angry with God, that's going to show in how I'm reacting to things or whatever. But if my wife and I were able to share very intimately how we felt that given day or that given moment, right? I can remember an instance.
Don't forget that you can remember an instance, but I want everybody to know it's okay in situations, right, to be angry with God.
Well, you have to be. You have a moment. We were created in God's own image. And you look in the Old Testament, God had his anger. We have anger. Again, it's what you do with that anger. It's working through it, because at the same time, I had sadness. I had regret. I had, you name the emotional guilt, you name it.
Whether there is any or not,
right.
There's got to be some you feel, right?
You're feeling all of those things, right? And you feel blessed because, I also look at it and go, okay, I could only imagine what it would be like for a person to lose their child when their child was 9, right? Because they didn't have hardly any life that they were able to have lived, or an infant child, right? Our son was 30 years old he had he went on some pretty cool vacations. He was able to have, we have 2 grandchildren through him. And so, we were able to experience a lot. He experienced a lot in 30 years. So from that perspective, we feel blessed that we have got a lot of memories and a lot of things like that. But back to the instance of the anger thing. Shortly after it happened, we were having to. There's a lot to do when a person passes away, as far as dealing with a lot of things. And as the father, I was the head of dealing with all of that, and I was getting very angry about certain circumstances. And my wife was with me in the car, and she was able to support me in the sense of letting me be angry with that. And there was some attacks that were on her as we were driving. I forget what it was, but she was able to at least understand, because I had shared that I'm angry about this. She knew that I was angry, and she knew I was angry about the situation, not angry at her. But it's very easy to then take that personally versus being able to understand I'm not angry with you, right? And there was absolutely never an instance between my wife and I where there was ever, and thank God, there was never any blame that either one of us felt about this circumstance being caused by the other individual,
right,
about the actions. Each of us carried our own guilt, and
right,
we shared that with the other. And we were able to then really more lift each other up and be able to talk through it and realize that, again, through our faith, that if we were supposed to have handled the situation differently, because we prayed a lot for the challenges that our son was going through, as far as with, he shared that he, there had been times when he had shared that, he didn't really want to be here, right? And it was more his brain, he couldn't shut his brain off. I mean, his brain was he was an extremely, he was an extremely intelligent kid. I mean, very intelligent kid, and he just couldn't shut his brain off. But at any rate, we then have guilt that we didn't, force him into going into some sort of a facility to try to, without his own free will. But he was a 30-year-old man, right? You can't force something like that upon somebody when they're a 30-year-old man,
right?
So he had to make his own decisions. It was his own life to make those decisions, and so with that, you have to get through all those things. But all those emotions are there, and then as time goes along, the emotions are still there, but you work through them faster. But I had days where I would go through 6 or 7 emotions throughout the day. I could start out the day feeling sad, and then I could feel angry, and then I could feel blessed, and then I could feel sad again, and then I could feel, it just does the whole gamut. But the biggest thing is that through that whole thing, my wife and I were always communicating. We had a lot of quiet time together where we just sat and talked about how we felt. And I think that also, through tying this back to all of the things that we've learned as a Christian couple in all of our experiences through church retreats and through couples retreats. And we've even been on that one that we went to in San Diego, right? That you learn how to communicate with one another. You learn how to speak in feelings. You learn how to do these things, versus that's all training that God has provided to us over time, that we were able to draw upon all of that training through that process. And by the grace of God, we've been able to keep each other lifted up, and we move on, right? I mean, he'll never be forgotten, but it's now been over a year, and so life continues. We have a great relationship with our grandkids, and look forward to watching them grow, and a phenomenal relationship with my 2 daughters, the girls that are the mothers of my 2 grandkids. Phenomenal relationship with both of them, and the same thing with my wife. And so we're blessed with. Then we look at that and go, God, we are blessed with that. This whole situation could be a lot different. And the glass could be a lot more empty than it is, versus focusing on what you've lost, being able to focus on what we still have and what we still have to look forward to, right? Because we're able to watch the legacy of our son through our grandkids, right? So we've been able to work through that, and our relationship is stronger. I mean, there was never any doubt. When you've been married for 35 years, it's we finish each other's sentences, so we're blessed.
One of the things you just said there, we talk about all the time, right, on Saturdays, is that God's got a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and it's already laid out in front of Him. We just don't know it, thankfully. But it's just interesting. One of the things you said that just now hit me is that through all of those years of counseling, marriage seminars, couples seminar, all of this training is what you called it. And all this, you know how we always talk about what God has done for us, but you don't notice it right away.
Mm-hmm.
He was preparing you all of these years for a year like no other. I mean, that year's, there's never going to be another year like that for most people.
Right.
For certain for you, right? And your wife.
Right.
The whole year stacked in, right? And you got through it when a lot of marriages just don't make it through something like that, man.
I guess if there's again,
if there's no God, for sure.
Well, if there's no God, because then you don't understand it, right? I mean, how do you? Because everybody has some, unless you're a complete atheist where you just don't believe in. Is it atheist that doesn't believe that there's a God that exists at all?
They believe in nothing.
No God, right?
Which is actually tougher to believe.
Right. But a lot of people may not be Christians, but they believe that there's some sort of higher power,
right?
That there's some sort of God. And as long as you believe that there's some sort of higher power or a God, without having the Holy Spirit and have that be part of your life and be in a Christian walk, you could get stuck on being angry with God. And it's again that training not only helped us through what we've gone through this last year, but just in our relationship in general. I mean, we are able to, because again, we still have our disagreements and fights, and as you well know, I can piss off my wife pretty well too. I'm one of those that is kind of quick to anger, but then recognize it, and that's also through training of recognizing what my part in it, right, and being able to back it down and then go with the apology, or that I was wrong in this situation. I think that one of the things in a relationship, be it with couples or friendships or whatever, your ego gets so much in the way of not being willing to acknowledge your part in a circumstance, right? And that you screwed up, you got angry, you did whatever. But if you acknowledge your part and then be able to try to move forward versus saying, I'm not going to apologize for that. I had the right to respond the way you defend how you responded, even though there was an awful lot of chaos that you created with whatever it is that you did. You defend it versus owning up to it, right? But then on the owning up part, if you have that relationship, and we had the same thing even think about it with our men's group. We've had some circumstances in our men's group where there's been some, personalities and things that have happened, but when one then owns up to it and you work past it, you move on, and hopefully you grow from it, right? Versus fracturing and not ever letting that fracture come back together. And again, we're bouncing around, but from a relational perspective, the reason that for my wife and I, not only with God and having Him in the center of our life, with my traveling that I do, I know what it's like to be alone, right? And where you end up in a relationship where there's anger, there's whatever, and all of a sudden you go, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now the ego comes into play where I'm not going to go grovel back, or I'm not going to go back and apologize. But now all of a sudden you're apart for a little while and you go, this kind of sucks. Right. I wish I was back together, but now it's hard to bring that back together. Where with my wife and I, there's no question that we are absolutely so much better together. And no matter what happens, we will work through it, right? There's no way that we can actually do this life without each other, right? Because we're not only our best friends, but we're our best cheerleaders, our best confidants. But we know that we're only getting through this together, and that there's really no alternative to that. So no matter how big the fight is, no matter how stupid the fight is, we know that we have to get past that. And I think as time has gone on, we're quicker at being able to get to that resolution versus letting something carry overnight. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You get it dealt with and move on. But believe me, there's lots of circumstances where, like you said, we can get our wives pretty upset with us pretty quickly.
We are better at saying dumb things. I'm not sure where that comes from exactly, but
yeah.
But well, I know a lot of it was just the way we were raised and the place we were raised, the age we were raised. You know, although our fathers were a lot different, they came from the same time.
Yeah. Well,
so
yeah, and again, that's a lot of that pours into how you do respond to certain things, right? But that's again where the more that you're around other people that have different perspectives on how to handle certain situations, allows you to learn and to grow, right? Because my father may have handled a situation a certain way, but you are able to provide a different insight, or I'm able to watch you and how you're handling a certain situation going, that's probably a better way to handle this, right? Or watching somebody handle a situation that didn't go very well going, I ain't going there.
I'm not going there.
Right? I'm not going there either, right? Because again, we're not all perfect, but we're there to lift each other up. And, again, we're tying back this whole thing between trying to be men of impact and being around other men that are of impact, either in relationships or not relationships amongst, again, a male-female type of a relationship, which we've been talking about, or friendship relationships, that through all of this, we continue to just strive to be able to move in the right direction as a group, right? And bringing everybody along, and sometimes dragging somebody along, right? Because we are a team, right? And we talked about going off on tangents. Remember that one day when we actually started talking about how we were a team and how you had to have a coach and you had to have the equipment manager, and we were talking about all the individuals that are part of the group, and that not everybody's the star third baseman that's hitting all the home runs. But if that star third baseman doesn't have a freaking uniform to wear, he's kind of in trouble, right? So you got to have the uniform guy, right? And you got to have the guy that washed the uniform. So it all comes together. And we spent an entire Bible study before it was done talking about every analogy possible that was associated with a freaking sports team. Right. But at the end of the day, that's what God wanted us to talk about that day. And it really does. There were certain things that kind of hit home to realize that not everybody's the superstar, but to be part of the team, you got to have all the different components to that. And that's where we then realized each individual can be there as part of the group and realize that, well, I'm not the guy that does all the talking, or I'm not the guy that does all this. I'm not the guy. Yeah, but you know what? You're the guy that is a prayer warrior. You're the guy that whatever. Right, we're all there together, and everybody has something to contribute.
That's right. We're hands and feet. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody does contribute for the most part. And in that, one of the other things I'd like to reiterate, and I'd like to hear all my guys say it, all my married guys say it, because marriage ain't easy, right? It's just not. If you marry the right person, which Phil has attested to, and it's easier than not, right?
Yeah.
Being with that person. Once you figured that out, fellas, life gets a lot easier, but you got to figure it out. You got to put the pride away. So here's what I want to say. Yeah. So 2 things, I guess, I'd like to hear you say. Number one, what is the number one most important relationship in your life with people on earth?
What is my most important relationship?
With people here on earth, because God's our most important relationship.
Right.
So what's the next most important relationship?
My wife.
Okay. You hear that, fellas? It ain't going out with the guys at night for a drink. Every guy in that group, who's the most important person in their life?
Well, it better be their wife. Or
we're going to tell them it better be, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that, because again,
that's what we do.
That is the first team, right? That if you are not a team, none of the rest of it's going to work very well, right? Because if you're not able to be together as a team at home, then all of your other areas are going to be impacted, because you can be a superstar over here, but if you're coming home and there's no teamwork that's going on there. Because the other thing, I know that we're running out of time, but the other thing that from a relationship perspective that my wife and I both adhere to is that I am so much more blessed with her in my life than her not in my life.
That's right.
Right. And if it's the bank account concept that you keep depositing into that bank account, and then you screw up and you make withdrawals. But if you don't feel in that relationship that you're better with that person, you're doomed.
You're doomed.
You're doomed, because you have to absolutely feel that no matter how troubled I may be going through right now, I still know that this is worth fighting for, because if I don't have this relationship, I'm so much worse off without it. Right. And again, back to the God thing, when I first met my wife, I don't know where I'd be without her. I absolutely would not know where I'd be without her. But, yeah.
I feel the same way. And so when we say that, you actually answered the two questions. Number one is, she's the most important thing. If you're a husband, she better be the most important thing in your life, other than God.
Right.
And the other thing you said was that in order to stay married, you have to want to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to want to more than anything else in life, or it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're out of time. So say hello, goodbye, or whatever to anybody.
See you. Nope.
Thank
Honey,
you.
I'll be home soon.
Thank you so much for being here,
right.
Phil. It's very important. Now let's go watch some baseball.
Absolutely, brother. All right.
Have a great day. Remember, I love you, but Jesus loves you more. Awesome.